Right, so today we're taking you to Scotland. Family trip to Scotland. You want to make sure everyone has a good time,
Yeah,
Ron.
absolutely.
We've been looking at this Love Scotland Substack newsletter.
Okay.
It's all about planning a family trip there,
Yeah.
right? And it recommended some really great articles too, so we're going to kind of use all that as our guide in this deep dive.
Awesome.
Kind of a cheat sheet to plan the ultimate Scotland trip
I love it.
for the whole family. Now, when people think Scotland, I know they think of those epic landscapes.
Right.
You know, the mountains, the lochs.
Breathtaking.
It's pretty hard to resist.
It is. Definitely part of Scotland's charm, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
it really is just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What else is there? What else is hiding beneath the surface?
Vibrant cities, festivals galore. You'll never be bored, that's for sure. About 200 festivals a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much to see and do.
Wow, that's incredible. And speaking of cities, I was blown away to learn that Scotland has 8 cities. Not one, not two, 8.
8 cities, each with its own distinct personality. Edinburgh, for example, is like stepping back in time. You've got imposing castles, winding cobblestone streets, perfect for kids to run around and let their imaginations go wild.
Oh yeah, I can just picture them pretending to be knights and princesses.
Yeah.
I bet you have some good stories about those castles.
Oh, so many stories. Just picture Edinburgh Castle perched high on volcanic rock. It's been a royal residence, a military fortress, and even a prison over the centuries.
Wow.
Now it houses the honors of Scotland, the Scottish crown jewels, some of the oldest in Britain.
Oh wow.
Imagine seeing the sparkle in your little one's eyes.
Now that's some serious bling.
It is,
Okay, Edinburgh's a must-see.
for sure.
What about some of the other cities, though? What makes them special?
Well, Glasgow has a totally different energy. It's all about modern art, trendy cafes, a really cool creative vibe. The Kelvin Grove Art Gallery and Museum is fantastic for families. They have everything dinosaur skeletons to masterpieces by Salvador Dali.
Dinosaurs and Dolly. That's a combination I didn't expect.
It's the perfect blend of education and pure fun. And if you need a break from the city buzz, Glasgow has some great green spaces. Pollock Country Park is one of the largest urban parks in Europe. You can go on walking trails, explore the gardens, there's a play area,
Sounds great.
and they even have Highland cows,
Wait, those adorable fluffy cows with the giant horns?
the ones and only.
Okay, those are on the must-see list. I'm adding those right now.
They're definitely a crowd pleaser.
Yeah,
And speaking of must-sees, we can't forget about Inverness.
of course.
Gateway to the Highlands, a region steeped in folklore, breathtaking landscapes.
And home to the legendary Loch Ness Monster. You can't talk about Inverness without mentioning Nessie.
Of course. A boat trip on Loch Ness is practically a rite of passage for any visitor.
Absolutely.
Who knows, you might even catch a glimpse of the mysterious creature.
Now, I secretly hope that Nessie is real.
You know, it's fun to believe in a little magic, right?
I agree. Okay, so Edinburgh, Glasgow, Inverness. Each
Yeah.
one sounds amazing in its own way. But before we get too carried away with the cities, the newsletter also mentioned something that really surprised me. It said that Scotland hosts something like 200 festivals every year.
Yes, about 200.
200. From world-renowned arts festivals to those quirky local gatherings that you just won't find anywhere else. And let's not forget the Edinburgh Christmas Market.
Oh, it's magical.
Oh, Christmas markets. They're always a hit. So much to see, so much to do. Where do we even begin?
Well, one piece of advice, especially if you're planning to travel in 2024,
Okay.
is to book your accommodations and tours in advance. They're saying that it's going to be a very busy year for tourism in Scotland.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Don't wait until the last minute or you might miss out. Now, I have to ask about this website that the newsletter mentioned. It's called Cooee. I mean, the name alone, how could you resist?
What is it? It's a resource specifically for families traveling to Scotland. It's got a list of the top 10 things to do with kids there, so I think it would be really helpful for our listeners.
Okay, Cooee is definitely going on my list to check out. Now, before we move on to some specific locations and activities, there's something else that caught my eye. It's Glasgow Cathedral.
Okay.
The article called it a stunning example of Gothic architecture, and it's dedicated to St. Mungo, the patron saint of Glasgow.
It's a remarkable structure. Imagine soaring arches, intricate stained glass windows, and these incredible stone carvings that tell stories from centuries past.
I can just imagine the whispers of history in those walls. What about St. Mungo, though? Is there more to the story?
Absolutely. He's a legendary figure shrouded in myth and miracle. There's this really famous tale that involves a robin, a bell, a tree, and a fish, all symbols associated with miracles he is said to have performed. And those stories are often depicted in the very carvings we were just talking about.
Wow. I'm getting chills just thinking about that. Okay, we've got stunning architecture, fascinating tales of saints.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the food? We can't talk about Scotland without mentioning the food.
You're so right. And I have to say, I was intrigued by this one really simple treat that the newsletter highlighted: homemade Scottish bannocks and butter.
You know what? I actually had to look up what bannocks were.
Okay.
Turns out they're these delicious flatbreads. I mean,
Yeah.
talk about perfect for little hands, right?
They sound delicious. And probably even more so after a day of exploring castles and chasing Highland cows.
I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we've got cities, castles, festivals, even Highland cows.
Yeah.
And now we've got delicious bannocks.
It's quite the combination.
This deep dive is making me want to hop on a plane right
Me
now.
too. But hold on tight because we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to uncover.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's keep going.
So are you ready to venture a little deeper into the Highlands? I think we should head north to Inverness.
Ooh, yes. Land of Nessie and the majestic Highlands. The newsletter called Inverness Castle, a celebration of the Highlands.
It did.
What does that even mean, though, for families visiting?
Well, that's a great question. And I think that's part of the appeal. It's a bit of a mystery. It's no longer a traditional museum. They've kind of reimagined it to really showcase the spirit of the Highlands through interactive exhibits and immersive storytelling and even hands-on activities. Imagine your kids learning about the Highland clans, trying on traditional tartans, or even testing their skills with some Highland games.
Wow, that sounds so much more engaging than just a stuffy old museum. It's like they're bringing history to life.
Yeah.
Inverness Castle, going straight to the top of our list.
Hmm.
But what else is there to explore in the Highlands?
Well, just a short drive from Inverness is, of course, Loch Ness. You can take a scenic boat tour, keep your eyes peeled for Nessie, or visit the Loch Ness Center and exhibition, where you can learn all about the legend and the science behind the mystery.
I love how they combine the legend with the science.
Mm.
Keeps the magic alive,
Right.
while still satisfying those curious minds. Now, the newsletter also mentions a trip to Speyside. I have to admit, I'm a little stumped. What's Speyside all about?
Ah, Speyside. It's often called whiskey country for a reason.
Okay.
This region is home to over half of Scotland's whiskey distilleries,
Wow.
each with its own unique history and flavor profile.
Okay, so whiskey might not be the most kid-friendly activity,
Mm-hmm.
but surely there's more to Speyside than just distilleries.
Oh, absolutely. While the adults might enjoy a distillery tour or two, the kids will love exploring Cairngorms National Park.
Okay.
It's a vast wilderness playground. Think towering mountains, pristine lochs, ancient forests.
That sounds more like it.
Yeah.
What kind of adventures can families have in the Cairngorms?
Oh, you name it. Hiking trails for all levels, from gentle strolls to some more challenging climbs. You can go mountain biking, kayaking, even whitewater rafting, if
Wow.
you're feeling adventurous. And then, in the winter, the Cairngorms transform into a winter wonderland, perfect for skiing, snowboarding, or just a good old-fashioned snowball fight.
Skiing in Scotland. I had no idea.
It's a hidden gem.
Okay, the Cairngorms are officially on the itinerary. Now let's talk about Perth. The newsletter describes it as a double gateway. I'm not sure I follow.
Well, it's a clever way to describe its location. Perth is known as the gateway to the Highlands, but it's also very close to Scone Palace, a place steeped in royal history.
Scone Palace. That name rings a bell. Isn't it connected to Scottish royalty somehow?
You got it. Scone Palace was once the site of coronations for Scottish kings. In fact, it's home to the Stone of Scone, also known as the Stone of Destiny,
Wow.
a legendary stone used in coronation ceremonies for centuries.
The Stone of Destiny. I've always been fascinated by that. What's it like to see it in person?
It's quite an experience. The stone itself is pretty unassuming, but the weight of its history is definitely palpable. Imagine standing in the very spot where countless Scottish monarchs were crowned. You can practically feel the echoes of the past.
Okay, chills. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. We've talked about Edinburgh, Glasgow, Inverness, and now Perth. Are there any other hidden gems we should know about?
Well, there are countless charming towns and villages throughout Scotland, but one spot that really stands out for families is the Isle of Skye.
The Isle of Skye. I've heard it's absolutely breathtaking.
It is truly magical. Imagine dramatic cliffs plunging into the sea, mystical fairy pools, and landscapes that seem to belong in another world.
Okay, the Isle of Skye is officially going on the dream list.
Mhm.
But let's be practical for a minute. If you're traveling with young kids, are there certain things you recommend keeping in mind?
Absolutely. I mean, when it comes to family travel, practicality is key. First and foremost, pack for all kinds of weather.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Scotland's weather can be a little unpredictable, so be prepared for sunshine, rain, even snow, depending on the season.
Yeah, it's always better to be over-prepared than caught off guard. What else?
Well, Scotland is a very walkable country,
Okay.
but if you have young children, a stroller is definitely a must. Also, consider bringing a carrier for little ones who might tire easily. And don't underestimate the power of snacks.
Oh, snacks are a lifesaver.
They are. Keep those little bellies happy, and you'll avoid a lot of meltdowns.
Any advice on finding kid-friendly accommodations?
There are plenty of family-friendly hotels, guest houses, even self-catering cottages throughout Scotland. Just make sure to check for amenities like cribs, high chairs, play areas, and if you're planning to explore more remote areas, booking in advance is essential.
Great tips. Now, let's not forget about those 200 festivals Scotland is so famous for.
Right.
Anything families should keep in mind when planning a trip around a festival.
Absolutely. Festivals can be an incredible way to experience Scottish culture, but they can also be very crowded, especially the popular ones that were mentioned in that top experiences likely to sell out list.
Right.
Make sure to book accommodations well in advance and consider the logistics of navigating those crowds with young children. You might want to opt for festivals that are specifically geared towards families or that take place in more spacious outdoor settings.
That's smart. It's all about finding that balance, right? Experiencing the excitement of a festival, but also making sure everyone in the family is comfortable and happy.
Absolutely.
Now let's circle back to something we touched on earlier. Food. We talked about those delicious bannocks. What other culinary delights should families add to their must-try list?
Well, for a hearty, warming meal, you can't go wrong with a traditional Scottish stew. Picture tender chunks of lamb or beef, slow-cooked with root vegetables, flavorful broth. It's the perfect comfort food after a day of exploring the Highlands.
Okay, that sounds amazing. What about seafood? Scotland's coastline is renowned for its fresh catches.
Absolutely. From succulent scallops to fresh-caught salmon, Scotland's seafood is exceptional. And you can't go wrong with a classic fish supper, crispy, battered fish and chips.
Fish and chips, now you're speaking my language. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Bustling cities, breathtaking landscapes, even a few encounters with Highland cows.
We have.
But before we wrap up our Scottish adventure, there's one crucial element we haven't really explored in depth.
Let me guess. You're talking about dessert.
You know me too well.
Yeah.
We did touch on those simple but delicious bannocks.
Yeah.
What other sweet treats await us in Scotland?
Well, for a taste of classic Scottish baking, you have to try shortbread.
Okay.
It's so buttery and crumbly, it just melts in your mouth. And for something truly unique, there's a confection called tablet. It's kind of like fudge, but with the slightly greeny texture. Trust me, it's addictive.
Tablet, you say. Okay, that's going on the list. And speaking of things that are uniquely Scottish, the newsletter mentioned a drink called Urn Brew.
Oh, yes.
What in the world is Urn Brew?
Okay, so picture this. Bright orange, fizzy, and with a flavor that's, it's indescribable. Some say it tastes like bubblegum, others say it's more like a citrusy cream soda.
Wow.
It's one of those things you just have to experience for yourself.
Okay, color me intrigued. Urn Brew, here I come. Now, before we send our listener off on their Scottish adventure, any final pieces of advice to make their trip truly unforgettable?
I think the most important tip is to embrace the unexpected.
Okay.
Scotland is a country that rewards curiosity, a sense of adventure. Don't be afraid to veer off the beaten path, strike up conversations with the locals, and just soak in the magic of this incredible country.
I love that. Embrace the unexpected. It's those unscripted moments that often become the best memories, right?
Absolutely.
Now, we've talked about cities, castles, festivals, the food, but I can't help but feel like there's still so much more to discover. What's one thing about Scotland that you think often gets overlooked?
That's a great question. I think what often gets overlooked is the sheer diversity of Scotland's landscapes.
Okay.
We tend to focus on the Highlands, which are undeniably stunning, but there's also the rolling hills of the borders, the rugged coastline of the East Coast, and then the tranquil islands scattered off the West Coast.
It's like a whole world packed into one country.
Exactly. And each region has its own unique character and charm, so encourage your listeners to go beyond those iconic landmarks.
Yeah.
Explore those hidden corners of Scotland. They might just stumble upon their own personal paradise.
What a beautiful way to wrap up this deep dive. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling incredibly inspired to plan my own Scottish adventure.
Me too. Scotland is calling, and I think it's time we answered.
So to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your wanderlust. giving you the tools to plan an unforgettable family trip to Scotland. Remember, embrace the unexpected, get lost in the beauty of this incredible country, and create memories that will last a lifetime. Happy travels.